Right now on Bears Unleashed, brought to you by IGS Energy. The Bears are closing in on the opening game of the season.
Just ready to play, ready to get on the field.
We'll break down both the offense and defense as the monsters of the Midway defend Soldier Field against the 49ers. Bears team captains for the 2022 season were announced. Coach Eberflus will tell us who they are. Plus, what's the one word you need to know before kickoff on Sunday? Find out next on Bears Unleashed. Welcome to Bears Unleashed, brought to you by IGS Energy. I'm Cassie Carlson. Week 1 of the NFL is finally here, and we are set to be entertained until February, thank goodness. And I think last night's Bills-Rams game totally set the tone. And Sunday, the Bears kick things off, hosting the 49ers at Soldier Field. Joining me, as always, here on Bears Unleashed, Gabe Ramirez, Anthony Herron, excited to have you here. How are we feeling ahead of Week 1?
Got to be excited. Bear football's back. Like you said, got a little taste yesterday with Bills-Rams, but can't wait, man. Bears-Niners, going to be a good one.
It's kind of crazy when you think about it that we're here just ready for the season to launch, and then it's going to be like, before we know it, it's going to be February. So let's remember this, let's feel this, let's appreciate the onset of what we're about to enjoy.
It goes from conceptual to the real thing, and I think we all got a little bit of a taste, or maybe a little bit of too much excitement with the Bears' 3-0 preseason start, which we take that with a grain of salt. But we saw fast-paced, tough football that Matt Eberflus lives by and was apparent in all those wins. They've had the offseason and training camp for Matt Eberflus and the new staff to implement a new offense and defense, and now it's time to put it to the test when the lights come on Sunday afternoon.
We want to see us operating, aggressive, smart football, and we think we're getting better that way. But again, this is, a game. Now, it's not a preseason game, and we're excited about where that is.
What excites me most, just what we can do if we, all do our job, if we all do our, individual responsibility, if we all get off the ball, all do our, jobs and execute well, then, our offense is really good.
I have a lot of faith in the guys around me, our coaching staff, and I just feel good about where we're at right now and feel good about where we're going in Week 1.
Well, let's talk about this Bears offense because there are a lot of changes. You have a new offensive coordinator in Luke Getsy, but you also have Justin Fields entering year 2. He's the guy from the start, totally different situation from his rookie season. So let's start with Fields at the quarterback position. What are your guys' expectations for him?
Yeah, the expectations for me is just to get a little better, right? I don't need Justin Fields to be Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers. I need to be Justin Fields 2.0. Be better than you were last year. We saw that in the preseason. He looked a little more confident, having a little bit of ownership over this offense and a higher completion percentage. And you and I talked about this a lot. We saw last year he was hovering in the low 60s or higher 50s. So if he can get to that place where you're upper 60s, low 70s, keep drives going, to me, that's going to set the tone for the full season if Justin Fields can get on par with that.
And you guys referenced the game from Thursday Night Football to open the season up. And the Buffalo Bills, in my opinion, are a great comp. Frankly, it's the comp I was making towards the end of the time that Mitch Trubisky was still the Bears quarterback, but a defensive-minded head coach, an organization that isn't going to put too much on a young quarterback early on and just watch him progress kind of steadily season by season. And even though a lot of folks are curious about the amount of weaponry that may or may not be around Justin Fields, I think on the whole, though, the approach that this franchise is taking can give him an opportunity for steady growth, Cassie.
Well, you mentioned the weapons around him, and Darnell Mooney is the obvious #1 receiver. He had that 1,000 yards receiving season last year that he's coming off of. Do you think he proves something further this year, given all the talk around that receiving core?
I think he proves to the league and fans that he is that #1 that he thinks he is, right? I think going into the season last year, you saw him and you said to yourself, okay, this guy's really good. Okay, this guy can create some space for Justin Fields. As you saw there, surefire hands. But people still doubted his abilities. And I think the way to kill all that is to do it consistently. So if he can put another year under his belt with 1,000 yards and 100 receptions, then I think everybody will feel that way about Darnell.
And we saw the progression that Mooney made last year as well. Like his rookie season, where you were sort of, shielded by Allen Robinson to a certain extent. Then last year, even when Robinson was in the lineup, it did emerge where Darnell Mooney became the main pass catcher, but there were some drops. There was a little bit of that with the volume of targets he got throughout the season. Here's what I would love to see, and what I think can prove he's a #1. Every team, that ace receiver has got to be a guy who puts the ball in the end zone. And not only when you're already in the end zone, can Darnell Mooney progress? And I think the physical abilities seem to be there. Can he progress as a guy who, with the yards after catch, doesn't just elude a couple of guys, doesn't just make a couple of slippery moves, but can he go the distance? Can he be that true home run hitter?
Well, Darnell Mooney has also said several times that he likes that everyone is doubting this offense. He thinks they're going to put them on notice pretty quick. The offensive line will be tested right off the bat with the 49ers, especially left tackle Braxton Jones going up against pass rusher Nick Bosa, an elite pass rusher at that. How will you measure what Jones can be for this team when he's bound to lose some reps against Nick Bosa?
I think on the whole, Cassie, when you have the ability to game plan for a pass rusher like Nick Bosa, you have to take that into account. If you're Luke Getsy, you have to take that into account for the entire offensive staff, because they're definitely going to want to see how frequently they can get a one-on-one matchup between Bosa and Jones. He's a rookie. They know his resume. He's a fifth-round pick. The Bears have shown ultimate confidence in Braxton Jones throughout the preseason, though. So it's going to be an immense test that he has in game one. But we shouldn't see, I don't believe, frequently where there's these one-on-one matchups between Jones and Bosa. Get the backs in there, the tight ends. Just make Nick Bosa not have no idea who's hitting him.
So that he's not yelling out, help,
Yeah,
help.
right.
But Ant, you would agree here, I'm sure you want to go up against the best, right? So that way, by the end of the season, your knife is sharpened and you're prepared for situations like that. So it's going to be interesting to see Braxton get those reps against Bosa and to see how he fares. I think everybody's going to be looking towards that.
And Luke Getsy says he never puts a ceiling on a player based on where they've come from. He's giving Braxton Jones the same amount of chances he would get anyone else. All right, now it's time for the Clean Energy player to watch. Who is one Bears player you think will make the biggest impact against the 49ers? Gabe, go first.
I'm going to go with Cole Kmet out the gate.
Okay.
I think that in order for the Bears offense to have a production than they did last year, they're going to need that from Cole Kmet. And like you mentioned with Darnell Mooney, he needs to touch pay dirt, get in the end zone, and clean up those drops. Because I know that's what Ant's about to say.
Yeah, the third downs, man, the third downs, to be a playmaker, to be relied upon. That's where Cole Kmet has got to come through. Let me go over to the defensive side. I know we'll get some more D going throughout the show here. Roquan Smith. He was such a story. He was maybe the story in the offseason leading into this period of time, Cassie. And I just think that for a guy with his abilities to be in what's truly a contract year at this point, I want to see what Roquan's going to do with that young quarterback across from him.
I'm also looking at the defense, especially with Jalen Johnson, knowing he's going to have to cover Deebo Samuel. No easy task. He put up 171 yards against the Bears last season, has big playability anytime he gets the ball. Jalen Johnson, though, year 3, I expect him. He was really good last season to just take the next step and keep continuing to get better. All right, coming up after our first time out, we will take a look at the Bears defense and what they can expect to face on Sunday at Soldier Field. Stay with us. Welcome back to Bears Unleashed, presented by IGS Energy. Matt Eberflus announced the team captains for the 2022 season in front of the whole squad on Wednesday. Let's take a peek inside Hallis Hall to see how it went down.
Here we go. Boom, Justin Fields. Roquan Smith. Cody Whitehair. Robert Quinn. Okay, so that's your 4 captains, guys, for 2022, and we have an honorary captain every single week, right? So we'll name that guy earlier in the week when we get going, but this time we're going to do it here, okay? And this is a great teammate, okay, and a tough son of a gun. For our first game for the 49ers, honorary captain is David Montgomery.
A cool moment right there to see Justin Fields, Cody Whitehair, Roquan Smith, and Robert Quinn wearing that C on their chest. And then you have David Montgomery, the honorary captain, week 1. We touched on the offense in the last segment. Now it's time to talk defense. The 49ers averaged around 25 points per game last year. They have a new quarterback. And most importantly, maybe is George Kittle not likely to play with a groin injury come Sunday. So that changes things a little bit. But guys, what will you be looking for come Sunday when we see the Bears starting defense run out there?
I want to go back to the captains real quick,
Okay,
right?
go.
I think I was looking at that and I thought to myself, man, is David Montgomery salty? Does he feel a certain type of way that he's not a captain? So like you kind of had to make him the I wanted to ask you this, Ant. Do players care that much? Like, is David Montgomery? Do you feel like he feels a certain type of way because he didn't get named captain for the entire season?
It's a huge honor. It is, especially once you get to this level of football. When you get named a captain, whether it's being voted by your teammates, whether it's the coaches, there's an esteem that comes with it. Would he prefer to be kind of a permanent captain? I'm sure, but I would say, Gabe, that to at least be like the first one out of the gate, out of the honorary captains, that
feels
there's
good.
at least an honor that
Okay.
goes with that. And
But-
he respects all the other guys
Right.
that are there, too.
But I did like the fact that Roquan was there, Robert
Yeah.
Quinn were there. I think that was the correct decision. I think when you're looking at Robert Quinn, he proved last year he can be that anchor. You saw the passion in which he spoke with at the beginning of training camp, wanting to be a Chicago Bear, wanting to play for this team. So I think those guys are going to be ready to go. I think they're going to be hyped up, amped, like you mentioned earlier. Roquan is going to want to come out the gate, make a big statement, and they do have weapons. You know they're going to pound the ball. You know they're going to try to get the ball to Elijah Mitchell, obviously get Trey Lance on the outside. So it's going to take a little Robert Quinn. It's going to take a little bit of Roquan Smith in order to stop this offense for sure.
And when it comes down to it, Cassie, and you're there at Hallis Hall on a consistent basis, even with some of these younger guys who've started to emerge here, we know David Montgomery has been a voice for this team on a consistent basis already, as has Roquan Smith. So the leadership will end up showing itself, sort of regardless of who's labeled the captain or not. But I do think, in addition to that honor that comes from the organization, but the teammates in the room kind of know who that guy is, and the ones who are the spokesmen, to the media after some of the difficult times we saw last season, then those guys are going to kind of be who they are already.
And these team captains were voted on by teammates. All right, and I do want to hear your response, though. You mentioned Roquan Smith is someone you're going to be watching come Sunday, but the defense as a whole, what do you want to see? What do you want them to prove to you in week one?
Well, they've got an interesting task because, it's not only the Bears with the second-year quarterback, Trey Lance, going into the start against the Bears defense that, we kind of look at it like, all right, Matt Eberflus's defense is going to be vanilla and, maybe won't be that confusing. But anytime you face a young quarterback, a guy like Trey Lance who's going to step into this opportunity feeling like he's got something to prove, Roquan Smith can be a part of what confuses him. Watch him in the A-gap. See what that does to throw off the potential for pass protection. Watch if he's going to spy, a guy like Trey Lance in space at times. If he's looking to take off and run just because his eggs are scrambled by what's happening coverage-wise in the secondary, because Eddie Jackson is going to have that potential to do a lot of things to kind of throw him off. So I'm going to be curious how frequently they try to do something and maybe confuse Trey Lance pre-snap.
We got to talk about Deebo Samuel. He's the Swiss Army knife in this league. He had 1,400 receiving yards last year and 365 rushing yards as well. He put up 171 yards against the Bears last season. What can you do to slow down a guy who can do it all and at a high level?
I think it's about stopping the big plays, right? I think it's one thing. He's going to get his passes. He's going to get his targets. That's going to happen. But it's about tackling, right? Making sure Jalen Johnson is there. Making sure Eddie Jackson isn't watching someone go right by you without touching them. Those kinds of things, making those mistakes. Because, again, obviously, every offense is going to operate at an elite level at some point throughout the game. And that includes Trey Lance to Deebo Samuel, especially without a Kittle on the team with the groin injury. So, again, it's about tackling. It's about limiting the big plays and keeping them within so that way you can keep the game close.
We know that Matt Eberflus is going to track all the various, sort of assignments within the hits principle. And I think Deebo Samuel this week is the guy who will test the hits principle as much as any when it comes to the Bears defense, because every time he gets the rock, he may cut it back against the grain. He may break a tackle. He may actually receive the ball deep down the field and force the play to be extended. Those second reaction moments that the Bears defense at the hits principle is all about. So can you pursue? Can you gang tackle? Can you do the things that are necessary for a talent like Deebo Samuel to not have some of these chunk plays that Gabe's talking about?
We talk about Trey Lance, the second-year quarterback, first-year starter. To me, I didn't think he proved that much in the preseason, and obviously they signed Jimmy Garoppolo, which you insinuate means they don't fully trust Trey Lance yet either. We talked about Nick Bosa being a threat to the Bears' offensive line and Justin Fields, but the 49ers have questions on their O-line as well. Do you think that the Bears have a good chance to make Trey Lance really uncomfortable, and what do you feel about the Bears' D-line?
Yeah, I think that's exactly what needs to happen. I think they have to put him in position where he's going to make a few mistakes because he still is a young quarterback, like you mentioned, and I completely wholeheartedly agree with. He didn't do anything last year that made me say, oh, this is Patrick Mahomes 2.0. This is still
You about to call him
Trey
trash
Lance,
like you did?
Trash Lance.
I cannot.
It's Trash Lance.
How
Trash
many
Lance.
opposing quarterbacks you call trash?
Yeah, well, you know what? The Bears were put in a tough situation last year, but, I think the Bears can't do enough to put them in some uncomfortable situations.
I think they likely will, and whether it's moving the safeties pre-snap, whether it's the shifting of linebacker positions, they're going to do what they can to have him uncomfortable. And I think in the end, when it comes down to it, any opportunity you have to not only make a young quarterback uncomfortable mentally, but make him uncomfortable physically. Trey Lance, if he runs around, you got to clean his clock within the rules. But anytime you get a chance to hit a young QB, make him feel it.
Make him feel it. Well, in Matt Eberflus's defense, he says finishing is key, so you expect that he expects to make sure they get to Trey Lance and they make him feel it. All right, time for another break. When we come back, we're taking a look behind the numbers. See you in a second. Welcome back. It's time for the Bet Rivers over-under. We've got some numbers for you. Starting with number 1, Darnell Mooney had 1,055 receiving yards last season and had 4 games with over 100 yards. So will he eclipse 100 yards in week 1? What do you guys think?
Ant, what's up? You got your scrunched face over there.
Pensive, man. I'm pensive
We
about
asked
this
really
one.
hard questions.
Yeah, I'm going to say week 1. First one out the gate, not quite, not 100 yards. I'm going to take the under. I do believe he'll likely be the Bears' leading receiver. I kind of got a Cole Kmet thing in my head right now. I think he'll lead the Bears in receiving. It won't quite be 100 yards. I'll take the under, Gabe.
I'm going to go the under as well. But the reason why is because I genuinely feel that Justin Fields is going to spread the ball around. He's not going to have one particular guy that he's going to be throwing to like he did last year. I think he really is going to move it around. You can see some Pringles, some Equanimity St. Brown, some Cole Kmet, some passes out the backfield to David Montgomery. And I think he's going to do a lot, too, with his legs. So I'm going to say under. How about you, Kat?
You haven't even gotten to see Byron Pringle as a part of this thing yet either.
Exactly.
So how does he affect things? There's some questions there.
There are some questions, but I'm just going to take the over because you guys both took the under. That would be no fun because I'm going to take it for the opposite reason that we don't know really what the Bears have with their other receivers. So I think the connection between Darnell Mooney and Fields is very strong based on the work they've put in all offseason. I don't know if the 49ers secondary is as good as their defense as a whole either. So I'm going to go the over on this one. All right,
Positive
we'll see.
vibes.
We'll touch base next week. All right. The Bears and 49ers scored a total of 55 points on Halloween last year. Will they score over under 40 on Sunday? That's where
I'm
it's at.
gonna go over on this one.
Okay.
I thought it was gonna. I think it's gonna be like a low-scoring game, right in the 20 to 17 range. But I do think there might be one touchdown that's gonna surprise us all. And I just want more offense, man. Give me some more points. I don't mind. Hit me with the over.
Yeah, it's unfortunate Velus Jones being banged up too, because I think like maybe in the return game, maybe a defensive touchdown, something like that could be something that enhances the overall scoring margin, scoring total in the game. I'll take the over. I think we're going to see some points. I don't think it's all going to come from the offense, though, kind of like you referenced there, Gabe. I'll take the over on the 40, though.
I'm also going over on the 40. I said my score
Well, that's
prediction
not
was
fun,
like, I
Cass.
know,
That's
but
not
I
fun.
already played one for the team, took one for the team in the first one. I can't do it twice. My money's important too.
Right, exactly.
Very true.
24-18 range is kind of where I'm at right now. I think while I do think both defenses are strong, I think maybe the defensive touchdowns from the Bears, especially because takeaways are a huge emphasis, might play a part in this. But I'm going to go over as well on the 40. That was a pretty lame.
No.
But I don't know.
You made
We'll
a
see.
strong case
Everyone,
for it.
though, has said everything with the Bears bet the under this year. We all went opposite on that one.
We're all hoping for the best.
Hoping
We're
for the
some
best.
offensive
Week one.
output.
Both teams going to emphasize that run game. Clock's going to tick away a little bit, but I do think there's going to be some other realm, some other phase where a touchdown gets scored to take it over.
All right, well, coming up after our final timeout, we'll tell you the one word that will define the Bears and 49ers Sunday at Soldier Field. So stay with us. After the Bears and 49ers game is over, switch over to our sister station, My 50, for Bears postgame live. We'll break down the game for 90 minutes. Luke Canellis, Jim Miller, and Anthony will be in studio. I'll be at Soldier Field getting player reaction, and we'll carry all of the press conferences live. Welcome back to Bears Unleashed, brought to you by IGS Energy. And it's time for the Miller Lite Blitz. Hit me with one word that will define the Bears season opener against the 49ers. Anthony, you're first.
So I believe that being in front of the home crowd will be a factor in this. And I believe just the fact that it's going to be the first regular season game that Matt Eberflus gets to coach this squad. And there's a lot of news. It's like 2/3 of the roster is going to be hungry to prove something when they take Soldier Field for the first time in a regular season game with the Chicago Bears. So that hunger, it's a part of the HITS principle. I don't think that's what the H usually stands for, but yeah, hustle, hunger, who knows? But that's the word that to me strikes how I feel like the Bears are going to have that hungry vibe out there.
They should be. They've looked at it like it all training camp long, like some guys that really want to get out there. And that's what leads me to my word, which is Execution. Don't mind the football. That's Justin Fields' pass right there.
drawings this
Have it right there. But it is about execution, right? We've seen some sloppy football from the Chicago Bears over the last couple of years, and I think that what Eberflus has instilled in this team is just that, right? It's a presence. It's about handling your business, taking care of your job, and the Bears need to do that. And it starts with Justin Fields executing well, limiting the turnovers. That's something that has to happen. I mean, because if the Bears want to win, they cannot turn the ball over against the San Francisco 49ers. So execution, offense, defense, and from the coaching staff as well. We've seen blunders from them over the last couple of years. So if we can get execution from the team and from the coaches, the Bears will be all right.
All right, my word is blocking. I went more specific to the offensive line because I think there's still a ton of questions there. And obviously we're looking at Braxton Jones and Nick Bosa, which we've talked about already. But with Lucas Patrick, we don't know where he's going to be playing, if he's going to be playing, returning from that hand injury. He hasn't, from all we've known, snapped a ball at center yet. And then he also is listed as potentially going over to guard, which then leaves questions for Tevin Jenkins. And it's just this whirlwind of unanswered questions that we have that I think we're going to find out pretty quickly. So I'm going blocking, specifically also trying to slow down Nick Bosa in that pass rush. I don't want to see Justin Fields on the ground too much.
Not a lot. Hopefully they got some nice little draw plays set up. They got a little bit of everything. That'll be cool.
All right. Week 1, Bears 49ers coming up at Soldier Field on Sunday at noon. That is it for this week's edition of Bears Unleashed. Join us every Friday night at 9:30. We'll see you next time.